Good afternoon. Welcome to ARTIVISM, the Power of Art for Social Transformation. This presentation will be recorded. If you do not want your image on screen, please turn off your cameras. Today we have with us Patty Labriola, a first-time author with her book, The Yawn That Went Around the World, published by Morgan James Publishing. Patty is a graduate of the Fashion Institute of Technology, FIT, in New York City. For the past 40-plus years, she has been an entrepreneur, operating here commerce business that has become a worldwide enterprise. Welcome, Patty.
And I just want to welcome you all and just let you know that I'm looking forward to just sharing my experience with you. Maybe very simple compared to some of the guests that you've had in the past. I know you've had some world-renowned singers and performers and artists and all of these wonderful guests. And it's a privilege for me to be with you to share my storybook, but more than that, to share the opportunity to know that any of your dreams, any of your inspirations can come to fruition, that it is never too late to see that happen in your life. And I know that some of you are at a different season in your life than I may be, but it is never too late. So all those dreams that you're kind of thinking about now as you're going through school, or, just make sure you're writing down all those ideas and all of that, because it's never too late to go back to that. But I think what I'd like to do is start by just sharing what I wrote as my dedication in my storybook, okay? Because I think that really speaks to who I am and to how this all came about, which I'll get into. But the dedication in my book says, dedicated to all the children in my life, past and present, to whom I am Aunt Patty, Grandma, but especially to the one who calls me Mommy. I want a special thanks to my husband, who helps make all my dreams come true, but especially to our God, who has and still makes all things possible. So I think that really tells you who I am at my core. I love children. I always have loved children. I've been surrounded by them all my life. I was privileged to become part of an entrepreneurial team in my early 20s. And so as I grew up and took partners that became very good friends, and then friends that became like family, I acquired all these extra nieces and nephews. And I had some wonderful nieces and nephews from my own siblings. But I became Aunt Patty to the masses, and I loved every minute of it, because I didn't have my own daughter until I was 40 years old. So all those years and decades previous to that, I was Aunt Patty to so many children, and I got the privilege of seeing them grow and become adults and then have children of their own. And then I was Aunt Patty even more. So I really want to just speak to you this evening about all of those kind of ambitions and maybe unfinished projects that many of us have had in the past. Maybe we wrote down something in a notebook, we had an idea about something, maybe we have an unfinished craft or sewing project that's sitting in a closet or in a basket somewhere. And I guess my real message is that it's never too late to go back to those projects and complete them. And what I'm going to share with you now is one such project of mine. So I do have others through the years that I finished, but this was something that really kind of was birthed in me when I was watching my then 6-year-old nephew. And he was in the back seat of the car. And my nephew, Danny, I noticed in the rearview mirror that he had yawned really big. And I saw him in the rearview mirror and I said, Dan, did you cover your mouth when you yawned? And he started laughing. And I said, if you don't cover your mouth, then the person in the car next to us is going to see you yawn. And they're going to catch your yawn, and then they're going to yawn, and the person next to them will catch that yawn, and it will go on and on. And he was laughing. He thought it was just the funniest thing. But I think we've all experienced, maybe even being in a class or a seminar or somewhere, where we see someone yawn and then we catch the yawn. And so I think we could all relate to that. But my nephew was just so intrigued by the whole thing and thought it was just the funniest thing. And I said to him at that time, I said, someday I'm going to write a storybook about that. And he was like, really, Aunt Patty? And I was like, yeah, someday. And then that's one of those things that kind of goes on the back burner, and it's that someday aisle, right? So we remember it, but it kind of goes over there because we're doing other things and life gets in the way. Well, years later, when my daughter was 3 years old, a similar situation happened, and I saw Stephanie yawning, and I said, Stephanie, did you cover your mouth? And I repeated the same story that I had told my nephew years before that. And that prompted me to say, you know what, it's time to write this story and to really make it a book. So I was out one evening with some business associates and dear friends, and the girls were all sitting together in a diner late one evening. And I said to the girls, I have a great idea for a children's storybook. I just need someone to collaborate with me. I need to kind of bounce it off someone. And immediately my girlfriend Dana said, I'll do it. So it didn't take long, because I think the next day or the following day, we were sitting in my dining room at my dining room table in Long Beach, and we started to play with the idea of this Yawn that went around the world. And it evolved over time. It didn't just happen. I mean, I even recently found the original folder, and I read the original story to Dana, and we were crying. We were laughing so hard at how this really started. But then little by little, over the course of several months, it evolved into the story that I will read to you in a little while. We had some help along the way. It was so much fun as we went through this process, because every time I went somewhere, I walked in with my folder with all the sheets in it for the book, and I would bounce the ideas off other friends. And we had two people in particular that were very instrumental in helping us. And one was a business associate of mine, Jean Valerio, who really kind of gave me some insight into some of the rhythm and rhyme. And then my girlfriend Dana's dad had been an editor for a newspaper in Michigan, and he helped us with some of the grammar and things like that. So we did give them both an honorable mention in the back of the book. So we did appreciate that. But even more than that, there were so many people through those months that laughed with us as we went through this and yawned with us many, many times. So it was a fun process, and we kept it light. When it finally came to be the story, kind of mostly the story completed, both Dana and I knew a wonderful artist. Dana has an interior design background, and she had worked previously with one of our business associates who's a very talented interior design artist. And I knew Kathleen as well through business. So both of us agreed that Kathleen would be the most wonderful artist to take on this project. Now, she had never illustrated a children's storybook before, but she spoke our language, and I think she knew exactly how to interpret what we were thinking and what we wanted to convey through the story. And I think you'll see that as we go through. Behind me is a lot of the original artwork that Kathleen produced. It's oil on canvas. The artwork is amazing, and I think really deserves to be recognized. The story is cute. It's great. It's relatable. I think we've had a great response universally with adults and children too. Mostly my audience is 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-olds. So I know those of you out here, but I'm going to speak to the child in all of us this evening. Okay. But the artwork was beautiful, beautifully done. And as I said, oil on canvas. And you'll even see that in the illustrations. You'll actually see, like, if you carefully look, that the canvas is part of the illustration, and it really is beautiful. So Kathleen did agree to illustrate for us. So this project appeared on these beautiful sheets. And through the years, what I did when I wanted to read the story to a niece, a nephew, a friend, I actually made copies of the story, of the illustrations, on huge sheets. And then I scotch taped the words of, I think you can see it. maybe. But anyway, each sheet has a little taped tag with the words, the verbiage of the story on that page. And this is actually the book that I used to read. It's incredible. It's just so, you know, kind of kindergarten. But that's the book I had, because when it was complete, I submitted it to a couple of publishers. I really didn't know how to go about the publishing process, anything like that. So I attempted a couple of publishers, got a couple of standard kind of form letters saying, you know, maybe tweak this, tweak that, resubmit, don't, whatever, we're not looking right now, whatever it might be. So at that point, I kind of, I guess, maybe a little discouraged, maybe just feeling like, well, I needed an extra push by someone who would say, you know what, I know someone I can connect you with, but that didn't happen. So this project was very safely tucked away, all the beautiful illustrations, 36 illustrations on 18 by 24 canvas sheets. All of this book that you see was all safely tucked away in a safe in the basement in our Long Beach home at that time. Today, I come to you from out east in Northport, Fort Salonga in Long Island. But back then, we lived in Long Beach. And then I think some of you may remember that we did have kind of a superstorm called Sandy back in 2012. And when that happened, one of my first thoughts after we evacuated and kind of lived out of our house for 7 weeks, but we went back every day to kind of clean out and clean up and do whatever we needed to do, just like so many other people did. But in that process, I was like, oh my goodness, the book is in the basement in the safe. And I couldn't wait till we could actually open it up and see what happened. So finally, when it was time to open the safe, it was inoperable because it had been all pitted from the salt water, 7 feet of water down there. And so we had to have somebody come in and actually drill the safe open. And finally, when they got it open, all this rusty water came streaming out, and I grabbed the folder with all of the artwork, which was the most precious thing that was in the safe. I'm not saying I had diamonds and jewels in there, you know, but the book was precious to me because there were many times through the years that I thought, oh, the book, you know, someday. But at that time, anyway, I took out the artwork. And it actually had survived because it was oil on canvas. So that was pretty much a miracle in my eyes. The book then was put in a safe place upstairs in a secretary desk. And as I said, many times through the years, I thought about the book. The book, maybe someday I'm going to get that to be a book. Well, a couple of years ago, we all kind of went through this pandemic. So that was 3 years ago now. And during that time, when everybody was quarantined and kind of in a place, the world sort of shut down, and we really needed to just stay in. We were kind of reprimanded if we didn't, you know. But I did say to my husband, Dennis, at that time, that if anybody was ever going to write a book, this would be the time to do it, because we were not being pulled in a million directions. We didn't have appointments that we had to run out to. It was really a time of reflection and time to do those things that maybe were on the back burner. And my husband, Dennis, actually went ahead and did write that book. So every day he went in his office and he put together a collection of short stories with some wonderful biblical afterthoughts. And the book became a reality, and it's called Seventh Inning Stretch: Reflections on the Game of Life. And the important thing about this is that because Dennis followed his dream and wrote this book, our book became a reality. And that is because when he wrote it, he said, I want it to be done well, even though I may self-publish and give it to the family or whatever. He said, I want it done well, so I'm going to hire an editor. So he went ahead and hired an editor, a wonderful company through Inspira Literary Solutions. And Arlen Lawrence took on the project of editing Dennis's book. But what's really important there, as far as this project, is that he had said to her, you know, have you done anything with children's storybooks? because he knew that I had this project sitting in a drawer. And he knew that in my heart of hearts, I had hoped that someday it would become a real book. So Arlen said yes, she had done some children's storybooks. Dana and I went ahead and hired her and her team to help us with the editing and design process. Along with Dennis's book, she submitted his to a publisher. They accepted Dennis's book to publish officially. He didn't self-publish. And then she went ahead and submitted ours to their children's division, and they accepted our book in their children's division through Morgan James, like RG said, and the book became a reality. And this is the book that finally is a real book, The Yawn That Went Around the World. And I'll just read you the little teaser on the back before I get into the story. But before that, this book, this paper book that I made all those years ago, had gone through the storm as well. And if you could see it, it's all faded and it was wet, but I let it dry. And I use that as an example when I do go to do readings in schools and libraries to the children. And I've read to pre-K all the way up to 3rd, 4th grade. Like I said, it's been received really well because the message is universal. Yes, we all yawn, but there's so much more than that. And so the teaser on the back of the book, I'll read that to you first. Stephanie's mouth opened wide and out came a roaring yawn, her biggest ever. And who knew that this would be the start of an adventure? In one pivotal moment, Stephanie sends a yawn out on an adventure around the world. Her yawn returns to teach her what a big difference one little person can make with just a small action, or sometimes no action at all. If an accidental yawn could travel the world, imagine what giving away a smile, a hug, or a shared word of encouragement could do. Follow the journey in the yawn that went around the world. So that's a little teaser. And I'm going to be very happy to be able to share the story with you. And I hope that you love it as much as we have enjoyed sharing it. And then I'm going to go ahead and just kind of give you some other insights, share with you some of the places that the yawn has traveled to, and then be happy to take any questions. So thank you so much. I'm going to go to a PowerPoint right now so that I can share my story with you. Here you go. Okay. So The Yawn That Went Around the World, written by Patty Labriola and Dana Pappalardo, illustrated by Kathleen Gertschy. And then there we see, okay, the yawn is traveling everywhere, and we're so excited that it is. Yawns are so funny, you'll see what I mean. Nobody throws one, you catch one, it seems. It was a sunshiny day like so many others, and the story begins with me and my mother. Mommy and I were both in the car. We were going to town. It was not very far. I'd missed my nap and was rubbing my eyes when I yawned real big as a taxi drove by. Oh no, said Mother, did you cover your mouth? Or your yawn might travel from north to south. A man in the cab out the window was glancing. He was going to Spain to practice his dancing. And just when I thought, what a yawn, oh my, the man in the cab let out a big sigh. He arrived at the airport with no time to spare, and before very long, he was high in the air. It was really too late, my yawn had been sent. Like an airmail package, off it went. A flight attendant caught his yawn. She had been flying from dusk till dawn. She passed her yawn to the folks on the plane, a doctor, a gardener, a teacher from Maine, a skater from Russia who'd settled to rest, yawned so many times that her sleep was all messed. There was a designer who made pretty clothes, who brought yawns to Paris with buttons and bows. She yawned and she yawned at all kinds of people, like a priest from Rome who rang bells in a steeple. A man from Alaska with stinky fish bait brought yawns to Australia, where they say, "Good day, mate." A delegate yawned and then made his connection to the Capitol building in time for election. From country to country, my yawn would travel, and like a pull in a sweater would quickly unravel. But it was the last straw when later that night, just before we turned out the light, the president was giving a speech on TV when suddenly he yawned for the whole world to see. The kids always love that part. A few weeks later, back in the car, Mommy and I weren't going too far. I'd missed my nap, so tired was I, that I yawned really big as a bus sped by. And that's when they see the people dreaming of the places they'll travel. Oh my. As I covered my mouth, I could see Mommy smile. The lesson was learned, though it took me a while. If one single yawn traveled so many miles, think what I'd do with just one of my smiles. People. A yawn or a smile takes a trip every day. Cover your yawns and give smiles away. And that is the end. And this, I wanted to share with you just some insight into the background of all of this. So that's myself and my friend Dana. Right after we received the first copies of the book. So we were pretty excited, finally holding the books in our hands. This is our illustrator, Kathleen Gertchie, same thing. I ran over there with a couple of copies of the book so she could finally see it. And just a wonderful, wonderful team with Dana and Kathleen. It's been such a blessing to be able to work with them. That's my daughter, Stephanie, today. So obviously when the book was written, she was about 3-4 years old. Kathleen used that portrait of her in the book, and that's Stephanie now at 25. I do tease her that she is finally a cover girl, so she gets a kick out of that, but I don't know if she's happy about the flattering picture of her yawning on the cover of the book. This past summer, I had the opportunity to visit all 58 Nassau County libraries and bring a book to every single one of them, which I love. So I know that it's out there. And that's at one of the libraries where I was invited to do a reading. This is at one of the public schools in Queens. That was a first grade class. This is in a school here in Kings Park out here in Long Island, where they brought in the pre-K, K, and first graders in one group, and then the second and third graders in the second group. So that was kind of fun. It was pajama day, so that was appropriate. That's my great nephew and great niece. They just have so much fun with the whole thing, get very excited, very encouraging. Some of my very best girlfriends from kindergarten and high school. So another library in Long Island, another library out here in Long Island, one of the homeschool groups that I visited. So like I said, a lot of yawning going on, a lot of smiles, a lot of laughter. My daughter and her cousin. That's my mom and my niece, and my mom is actually reading the makeshift copy of the book to my niece. So that's before we had the books, and she was reading that to her. So that was that's always a lot of fun. I actually took that book with me and did a reading at a school for my 2 godchildren for their class. So that book has gotten around too before it ever became a reality. And I think one of the fun things is being able to for my nieces, my nephews, and for all the children in my life to actually see the fruition of this dream that I talked about it for so many years. Everybody heard about this book for such a long time, and then to finally see it become a reality. So I think there's a pretty strong lesson in that as well, that, never give up, and that it is never too late, truly. Some girlfriends of mine that I was doing a reading at a play place in Long Beach, another school out here in Smithtown, Long Island. So that was a lot of fun, the first graders. This was so funny. I was at the Bronx Zoo, actually. I always have a book with me wherever I am. My friends laugh at me, but I always have a book, and I'm always prepared to give it away if I meet someone with young children and they're, blessed by it. So this was funny though, because we were in the place where the budgies, the little parrots are, and the sign actually said, "See a budgie yawning? If you see a budgie yawning, look at his neighbors, because yawns are contagious, even with budgies." And I was hysterical. I thought it was just the funniest thing. So a lot of times, life, oh, well, I'm going to go back here for a minute. A lot of inspiration comes through everyday life. And for me, anytime I have an opportunity to be around children, there's always funny things happening. And I have a folder with notes of other stories and ideas for the future. You just never know, so it really is funny when you see it coming. When I saw that, I just thought that was so funny. But this next one is truly the yawn that went around the world. Someone sent this to me after the inauguration in May of King Charles in England. Someone sent this, and there's little Prince Louis with his mom and dad and sister. And it said under this, "Prince Louis couldn't help but let out a yawn during the ceremony." And I thought that's true life. That is the yawn that went around the world right there. My niece was recently traveling to the UK, and I gave her a package to mail while she was there to Princess Catherine for her children. So hopefully she received that, and they'll be blessed by that, by the story that you just heard, because I think it was so appropriate, and it's just so much fun to see it out there being shared. And then the book has traveled. So this is in the UK. We had the official release of the story 1 year ago. This December 6th will be a year. And I happened to be in London during the release date. So we celebrated there in London and had a great time with that. I had the opportunity to be at a Make-A-Wish event, Make-A-Wish Foundation event, on New Year's, and there were several families, one traveling from Singapore. So I know that I gave them a book and they took it back to Singapore with them, and the children are in that picture. Another family from Hawaii was there at that Make-A-Wish event as well. So they brought the book to Hawaii. A girlfriend of mine visited a school in Liberia, West Africa, that was being dedicated in her mother's name. She brought the book with her and then posted this picture of some of the students, all different ages, young, older, all yawning. And this brought tears to my eyes when I saw this posted. And it was just so cool just to know that they were getting the message, no matter what country, what language. I guess yawns and smiles are the universal language, because it doesn't matter what language you speak. It's there, and everybody gets it, and if we could all be a little more like that in sharing kindness, encouragement, and just making a difference day by day with the little actions that we can, I think the world would always be a better place. My sister and brother-in-law traveled to Australia recently and brought the book there to a friend. A couple of weeks later, he posted this picture and he said, "This is my little one." He said, "I didn't even prompt her to do this. She saw the picture on the cover and wanted to emulate the picture." And then he sent this and posted it. So the book is out there as well. And that's just so much fun to see. My sister-in-law brought the book to Philippines, And this is a whole group of her family, nieces, nephews, friends, all there in the Philippines, sharing yawns and smiles. So it's making its way around the world, and that's really what we dreamed it could be, and that it will continue to be, because it doesn't, the message of the story doesn't go bad. It's not dated, it doesn't have a timeline, it's forever. So that's pretty cool. And then this one, most recent, was another friend who sent the book to France to her cousin, and that's her little girl just getting so excited about the book. And we actually are going out there next week, so I'll bring some more copies there, and we'll just continue to share the story and the message of the story as we go. And then this is in my Long Beach library, the library where my daughter Stephanie grew up. And they were the first library to invite me to come in and to put it on the shelf. And it was so exciting just to see that book with its own little code on the side on the shelf in the Long Beach library, and then hopefully in many other libraries, because as I travel, anywhere I go, we could move on, thank you. Anywhere I go, you know, we were in Boston over the summer. I went to the Boston Library. We were in Providence. I brought a copy to them. Wherever I go, I always bring a book and just put it out there so that it can be enjoyed and shared, because that's really what it's all about. You know, and I just wonder, you know, like so many lessons were learned, you know, so many, you know, just lessons throughout. And so mostly the lesson is that it's never too late to see your dream realized. That although we may put some dreams on the back burner, so to speak, that it's never too late, and we're never too old to see them realized. Now, I know I'm speaking to a young audience, and many times I am speaking to a young audience, younger than you all. But there's always some adults there, and I don't think you can ever be too young to get the message that, you know, don't ever give up on your dreams. Have dreams and don't ever give up on them. So I think even at the youngest age, you can never hear that too much. Okay, that the different seasons of life may lead to some detours. Okay, many of you are in a different season of life than I may be, but that it's always possible to get back on the path to achieve your goal, even if it's gotten a bit tarnished through the years. And we all have dreams that sometimes get tarnished, but never too late to polish them off and get started again. And I always think that if 3 women, Dana, myself, and Kathleen, in our 60s can see our first storybook published, that it, you know, that anybody, what could you accomplish if you dust off your dream and you don't give up? You know, so it's funny when I look back and I realize that over 20 years later, that this idea that began, really, it began when I was entertaining my 6-year-old nephew, who's now 37 years old. Oh my gosh, I was so excited when I sent him a copy of the book. Finally, Dan, you know. But anyway, now 36, that it was acted upon when my now 25-year-old daughter was just 3 years old, that it could come to fruition in its perfect time, and that God's timing is always perfect. It really is. I wouldn't have thought that 20 plus years ago, perhaps. But, you know, I always have often, you know, thought about the quote that God's delays are not God's denials. So if you hold on to that, you know, and you just trust that you're doing whatever is in your control, and the rest is kind of put out there, and it'll happen when it's the right time. Another friend of mine, I heard say that a setback is often a setup for a comeback. So if you hold on to that too, as you're going through this process of your education, maybe your professional career, as you get started there, that there are many paths that are going to maybe veer off in a different direction than you had planned. But that's okay, because there's always a reason why you go that way, maybe to come back this way. And also, that, you know, sometimes when a door closes, somewhere a window opens. One of my favorite quotes from The Sound of Music. So I'm definitely dating myself there. But, you know, that is so true. And I've hung on to that many times throughout my life. And you have a lot of future ahead of you, all of you that are on here. I don't care what age you are. If you're one of the students in Miss Argy's class, if you're someone else plugging in internationally, if you're in my season of life, whatever it might be. For my husband, Dennis, writing his first book, you know, at this time in our life, in our, you know, retired careers, really retired professionally and still working as entrepreneurs and sharing, paying it forward worldwide. That's really what we do. Not just with books, but with whatever business expertise that we could offer. So it's absolutely been a blessing for me to have this opportunity to meet Carolina and Argy, and maybe someday to meet each of you. So the book is available worldwide, wherever books are sold. And also, you know, I've been working on another project that was thought of back in 2002 when my father passed away. I wrote a story back then about grandparents, and that book is in the process now. It is written. It's just with Kathleen working on the illustrations. So hopefully in the next year or so, I'll have something to come back and share with you. Again, that it's just never too late. So keep those dreams. There's no limit to the number of dreams that you can have. So have a lot of them, and keep a record when you are inspired or moved to think of something. If a genius idea is birthed in your brain, write it down, and then don't be afraid to go back and build on it as time goes on. So again, I want to thank you. I want to wish you all a very blessed and happy Thanksgiving season. And I look forward to just connecting with you sometime in the future. And we'll take questions if you have any questions. Okay, so I do see some questions. So how did you feel? Oh my gosh, when I recovered the documents that were in the flood. So I felt grateful, and I acknowledged it as the miracle that it was, that they had survived the flood, you know, and that they weren't really damaged. I think out of 36 illustrations, only one picture had a little bit of damage on the edge and was redone. So it was pretty cool. Any other questions? Now, when I'm with the children, I get some really great questions. Okay, so let's see, what do we have here? Having a published book all around the world is amazing, and your stories, well, thank you. That's so sweet and encouraging. And I really appreciate all of the encouragement and enthusiasm that I have received this past year. Really, I was encouraged for many years, but you know, everywhere I go, when people see the book, it really draws them in. And they love sharing it, giving it for baby shower gifts, for birthday gifts to children. It's been a lot of fun. But the kids are so sweet. So when I'm in a big group and the children ask questions, some of the questions are, you know, are you writing another book and all of that? But some of the questions aren't anything about books. It's, do you like the Yankees or the Mets? You know, or they'll ask, you know, well, one little girl asked me why my cheeks are so puffy. And I said, it's because I smile so big. So that was cute. So you just never know what you're going to get when you're around children. So thank you so much. I really appreciate all of your encouragement and your beautiful comments on here. So again, I'll turn it over to Argy and Miss Carolina. And again, just thank you. If anyone has any other, I'm here. And I'll pass it on. Thanks.
You could continue to look at the chat. I think there is one more question. There are many comments.
Sure.
Was there a certain turning point where you decided to publish your book?
Well, the real turning point, I mean, I decided when we first did it that I really wanted it to be a book, but the turning point was Dennis's, you know, the step that Dennis took with his book and hiring the editor and going forward, asking her if she had done anything with children's storybooks. So it was a pretty easy transition from there, because I was handed, you know, the person to go to, and Dana and I then took everything out, laid all the artwork out on the big table, brought Kathleen in, worked with the editor to put it together into a book form. Her design team worked tirelessly to put it together, and I was just really, we were ready to move forward. We really felt like this was the right time. It was all perfect timing, really. Any other?
I think the whole story of how it came about is another book there.
I hear you. I know. It's interesting because, I mean, reading the storybook is fun. I love it. I love the story. But when I really think about what it's been through and the journey of the book, not just the journey of the Yawn, but the journey of the book, is really what gives this whole thing so much value, I feel, especially even to a group that I'm speaking to this evening, that you all, I mean, if it was just about reading a storybook, I'm not so sure, how excited you might be, although you're getting credit for the class, I think. I give you all an A, but I think the real story is the lesson of it in the, it's never too late. And my husband, Dennis, has been invited to do the ARTIVISM session in the spring, in March. So he'll be one of your guests come March, and you'll get to hear from him and what he did with this book too. So there's a great lesson and story behind that as well. A lot of really great lessons in there. So yeah. So thank you.
There's another one here. If you could go back, would you change anything?
I don't think so. I don't think I would change anything going back. I really don't. I think it's all the way it's supposed to be. Exactly. And even now, like with the book being released, obviously, it is available worldwide, but a lot of the bookstores, they're very limited on how many books they can put on their shelves. So for us right now, it's really just continuing to put it out there. And I know that I can't control everything. We would absolutely love to walk into a bookstore, a Barnes and Noble, see it on the table in the children's department, see Dennis's book on the front pedestal, but they're not there right now. But I do believe that, everything in its time, and if it's meant to be, it will be. So we're just doing our best just to put it out there and just make a difference as best we can. This book, I think the message is simple, but effective, and something that we can all learn something from. So like I said, I'm not going to stop. I love sharing it with the children whenever I'm invited to a school, a library, anywhere. We've driven to New Jersey early in the morning to be in schools out there, and just having a good time putting the message out there to children wherever they are. I just enjoy it, and it's a blessing for me to finally have the book out of the drawer, out of the safe, and out there in kids' hands, and they're having fun with it, just like I am.
Thank you for the presentation, Ms. Patty. I also have a question comment for you. Yes. How was it working, or what kind of advice, say better, would you give to people that are doing team projects? Because I know sometimes that can be a challenge. You have different opinions, suggestions, styles. For the audience watching today, what would be some advice along getting over those potential obstacles of working in a team to finalize a product, right?
Good question. Excellent question. In fact, yeah. I think it's, collaboration is something that you kind of grow as you go through it. So maybe there aren't always things that you agree on exactly. I think in this case, and when you don't agree, then you're just going to work through that process and just keep tweaking it until it comes to the place where you can be on the same page. For us, it wasn't difficult because we were good friends, and I think we all spoke the same language. I know Dana and I did, and then when Kathleen came on board, she got it. Like, we're kids at heart. I think my friend Dana is, and I know Kathleen has that same spirit. So I think we just worked together so well. It was pretty easy in this case. And with the next book, I believe it's going to be the same with Kathleen, because she gets it, you know, like she really is a giving person, an understanding person. So I think our personalities work well together and it'll come out great.
There's one more question. I think the name is so catchy and relates to what you are trying to spread around to people. Were you personally affected by the documents being ruined? Well, they weren't really ruined, right? They were saved.
Yeah, they weren't. I might have been if they were, but they weren't. And I think it's all part of, you know, just the kind of the blessing of the whole thing, you know, that it was just the whole thing, that it was, you know, it was put away. It was beautiful artwork. It was oil on canvas. If it had been watercolor, it would have been gone. You know, I mean, there's just things that I couldn't even foresee. So it just was that way. I would have been upset, but no, it was everything. It was all the way it was supposed to be. Does that make sense? Yeah. Let's see. Yeah.
Well, thank you for being our artivist today. Next Monday, November 27th, Professor Francis Negron Montaner will present Valor y Cambio, Art, Money, and Change in Puerto Rico. For more information on this and all of the series' past and upcoming events, please go to the website, adelphi.edu/artivism. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, at Artivism for Shared Humanity. For past presentations on our YouTube channel, again, Artivism for Shared Humanity. Also, if you would like to get more involved in this ongoing initiative, please contact the Artivism team at artivism@adelphi.edu. Carolina, do you want to do the takeaway?
Yes, first I would like to take a second to thank you again, Ms. Patty, for this wonderful presentation, for sharing the story, the behind the story, and the future plans that are coming. And we definitely will be expecting you back here in Artivism for sure. Thank you for inspiring us in that idea of that is never late. And also, I love the part where you mentioned that life has different ways of getting to that goal, right? There are many different paths for your goal, and there are always reasons that just follow, kind of like go with the current where it leads you, because that other phrase was also very powerful. God delays are not God's denials, right? It's just maybe you just need to sit a little more on it. It's not ready yet. Don't push it now because it's not the time, because there's perfection in times God in God's time, right? And with all this that we covered today, I would like to ask you for a key takeaway for your presentation today, for an action item for the audience, please.
I think a key takeaway would be to get a little journal or some kind of a little pad or something where you can start to make a dream list and write down some dreams. And don't be afraid to dream big. And it could be little. Little is okay. I don't know what you're saying. My tech guy. Yeah, I don't think it matters. Dreams can't be measured. There's no dream too small and no dream too big. And they happen in stages. So, you know, I think there's a lot of things that you can accomplish if you're not afraid to try. And everything will be in its own time. It might not be right now in this season of your life as you're going through school or working or starting a new profession, new job, whatever, but never to give up on that. And they'll change over time, and that's okay. And they'll grow over time. But again, in every season of your life, there's going to be some blessing that's going to come through. And acknowledge the little miracles. There's no such thing as a little miracle, because a miracle is a miracle. So I always like to acknowledge when I see a miracle, even if it's a simple thing. And sometimes they are simple things, you know. In this case, it was that the artwork didn't get ruined, or maybe it's, you know, that we had a pandemic, and somehow through the pandemic, something good came from that in this case. I know a lot of people struggled and it was horrible, but in this case, Dennis's book came from the pandemic, and because of his book, my book came. So it's recognizing and acknowledging that through every adversity comes the seed of a greater or equal benefit. And I think if we can hang on to that and just trust the plan and not get so caught up and discouraged along the way, if we just stay steady, then, you know, your future is bright. And you can follow me on Instagram or wherever you follow. Facebook. Carolina could give you all that.
Thank you. That's a beautiful note to close it up. If we have any burning last questions or comments from the audience, please, last go. Or Professor Arya, do you have a question perhaps?
Not a question. I so admire you. Your persistence, right? Your love for your work and your family. And all children. And I think that's a beautiful note to end on, right? Is just, you know, love and compassion for others, caring, giving back, right? Yeah, that's how I feel. I think it's a nice presentation for just before Thanksgiving. Thank you so much. Thank you to Sync for Hope, our sponsors, Gottesman Libraries, Teachers College, Columbia University, Adelphi University, Carolina Cambronero, Varela. To everyone here, have a wonderful holiday. Don't forget to give back, right? We're all very fortunate. Thank you, everyone. Hope to see you again next week or at another ARTIVISM presentation. Have a nice evening. Bye-bye.
Thanks again.
Thank you so much, Patty.
Thank you. God bless you all.
Bye-bye.
Happy Thanksgiving.